Solita en mí, hablando con los tiquisques, viajando con las hormigas que mil secretos le dicen. Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si llora la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar de la tierra al cielo. Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si lloro la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar del cielo a los suelos. ¡Epa! ¡Uy, ay, ay! Hay una niña canina en mí, canis la trans de los bosques, que caza estrellas de arriba para alumbrarse la noche. Y cuando sale corriendo por la puerta abierta en pampa, yo le doy besitos de agua para su sed sin enagua. Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si llora la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar de la tierra al cielo. Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si llora la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar del cielo a los suelos. Hay una niña, sí, hay una niña rebelde. Hay una niña rebelde en mí, con olor a papaturro, que se cuelga de las ramas mágicas del mes de octubre. Recoge mangos maduros sin lavar y se los come, y cuando llega la noche se inventa ríos y conjuros. ¡Epa! Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si llora la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar de la tierra al cielo. Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y si llora la consuelo y le digo que no hay nada mejor que andar del cielo a los suelos. ¡Epa! Y cuando bailo sale a bailar, y cuando llora yo la consuelo, sí. Y le digo sí que no hay nada mejor que andar de la tierra al cielo, del cielo a los suelos. Hay una niña bailando, hay una niña rebelde, canis la trans en los bosques.
Buenas tardes a todas, todos, todes, a las personas que nos acompañan en esta tarde-noche, recorriendo desde este encuentro nuestra América Latina, por eso con horarios diferentes, ¿verdad? Agradecerles muchísimo su disposición a participar en esta actividad que hemos organizado dos redes hermanas, la Campaña Latinoamericana por el Derecho a la Educación, la CLADE, y la Red de Educación Popular entre Mujeres de Latinoamérica y el Caribe, la REPEM. Y hemos aunado nuestro trabajo, nuestros esfuerzos, nuestra voluntad para juntarnos esta tarde para reflexionar en el marco de dos acontecimientos importantes. El primero de ellos, que cronológicamente ya pasó, pero que sabemos que conserva toda su vigencia, tiene relación con el 15 de octubre, que fue el día en que celebramos el Día de la Mujer Rural, que de las mujeres rurales, porque siempre queremos hablar en plural, porque somos diversas, ¿verdad? Que es un día importante que fue establecido en el año 2007 por las Naciones Unidas como un reconocimiento a la contribución fundamental de las mujeres rurales al desarrollo agrícola y rural, a la mejora de la seguridad alimentaria y a la erradicación de la pobreza en el campo. Pero también sabemos de los aportes de las mujeres rurales para la conservación de las semillas, para el cuidado de la biodiversidad. Entonces, ese es un primer motivo que nos congregan esta tarde. Y el otro motivo es la conmemoración del 25 de noviembre, que es el Día Internacional contra la Violencia hacia las Mujeres. Que queremos decir también hoy aquí que ya no hablamos sobre la violencia, que hablamos sobre las violencias. Y que es un día que conmemoramos, que no celebramos. ¿Cómo nos ha costado posicionar esa idea de que conmemoramos? ¿Por qué conmemoramos? Porque el 25 de noviembre, que fue establecido por las Naciones Unidas en 1999, lo que conmemora es la muerte, los asesinatos en 1960 de 3 hermanas dominicanas, las hermanas Mirabal, que murieron en manos de la dictadura de Rafael Leónidas Trujillo y que fueron asesinadas y que creo que al día de hoy podríamos decir que se trata de femicidios, no solo de asesinatos, que se trata de femicidios porque son mujeres que fueron asesinadas por razones de género también, por un sistema violento y patriarcal. Entonces, para el día de hoy, agradeciendo muchísimo su presencia, nos hemos convocado alrededor de estas dos importantes fechas para reflexionar, para generar eh, una reflexión muy situada, que lo que busca es precisamente visibilizar las realidades, luchas y propuestas de mujeres diversas en torno al derecho humano a la educación en América Latina y el Caribe hacia el 25 de noviembre. También queremos promover el diálogo intercultural y feminista entre redes y movimientos que defienden la vida, el territorio y la educación como bien común. Lo mismo que fortalecer alianzas entre organizaciones de mujeres, redes educativas, colectivas y movimientos sociales en perspectiva de justicia social y de género. Para esta tarde hemos invitado a mujeres activistas, a mujeres de movimiento. Eso es muy importante, porque sabemos que las mujeres de movimiento representamos un paso adelante en la politización de la demanda. Entonces, la tarde de hoy nos van a acompañar mujeres vinculadas a redes de mujeres y feministas muy importantes de la región. Ya las conoceremos. Quiero también decirles que estamos aquí como ya hemos hecho la experiencia, desde que vino la pandemia y tal vez un poco antes, conectarnos por esta vía y de siempre confiar que, que, que la conexión nos va a favorecer. Entonces, vamos a pasar al inicio de la actividad agradeciéndoles muchísimo su participación y yo les voy a dejar con la compañía de nuestra querida compañera María Cianci, de la CLADE, de la Campaña Latinoamericana por el Derecho a la Educación, aprovechando también para saludar a Nelcy Lizarazo, que es la coordinadora de la CLADE, y a Denise Guerra, que nos acompaña en la REPEM. Entonces, le doy la palabra a María.
Bueno, un saludo a todas las que nos acompañan, los que nos acompañan, les que nos acompañan. Tenemos el gusto de estar en este diálogo regional que hemos titulado Tierra, Territorio y Educación para las Mujeres Diversas por una vida libre de violencia. Queremos recordar también un aspecto técnico. Tenemos interpretación, pueden acceder a esta posibilidad de otros idiomas. Abajo en la parte inferior donde está el globito que parece como un mundo, tenemos para portugués, creol, para nuestros compañeros y compañeras de Haití.
On the low part of your screen, you have a little globe. You can choose Portuguese, Spanish, Creole, and English.
Y tendremos esta sala principal en español.
And
y bueno, sin más, vamos a tener
you
esta
have this main
dinámica.
room
Querido hacer,
in Spanish, which
una
is
estructura
our
diferente. Así vamos a
language today.
provocarles.
So with these dynamics, we want to do a different structure. We want to provoke you. We'll do an initial presentation with an initial question, and another friend will do her comments. So let's start. We'll have some information that's going to be shared by our partner from the technical area, Sandra. So let's see it, and then we start. Sexual rights and reproductive rights in the right of education. So this is the beginning of this experience that we had in Guatemala. We are having some technical issues. On Ramirez, Esther, are you here? No, she's not here yet. She's having problems with her connection. So we can keep going with another partner. So this meeting happened thanks to REPEM and CLADE, and here Denise Guerra is here with a host with me. Let's make this second round and see if she gets before the end of the session. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for everyone. I'm a little ill, but I'm really happy with this session. So let's keep going with our schedule. The question is for two really important invited women, and we thank her a lot for being here. Carmen Arriaga of the Latin American Network of the Defender Women and Social and Rights, and Afro-Latin American Network. Before the question, or I'm gonna launch the question and I would like to hear you, but before it, we would love that you could present yourselves. The question is, the right to education from REPEM analysis and CLADE analysis to have this right to education make it possible to have other rights. In this context, we would like to know from Carmen and Miriam experiences, how the educational demands attend the demands of the women. Any of you can take the floor, so please present yourselves. Good afternoon. I'll start because my connection is not that good, so I'm afraid of it. Good afternoon. Thank you, Nelson, CLADE team, for the invitation to be here in this reflection and dialogue process with the colleagues. We are interconnected by our activism. I'll try to be fast and about this question, but from the experience that we have as a Defender network, I'm going to present. My name is Carmen Arriaga. I am the operational coordinator of the Latin American network of the Defender Women of Social Rights. We are a network relation that are present in 12 countries, mainly with the states that we're talking about Defender women in mining extractivism and climate issues. We work in the territory with colleagues from indigenous and rural origin with violence issues and environmental issues. And from that, we started, as always, the organizations. We do some education spaces, alternative formation, and our session in the education context and the need for education for rural origin women which have other needs and vulnerabilities, from the need to incorporate practice, methodologies, and instruments that allow us to consider the local knowledge from our experience and theirs, fostering the feminist justice, fair climate, right? I could say that formal spaces for education, they don't consider the local knowledge and the needs of the women, especially indigenous and rural women. I'm saying that from an experience from two situations from both sides. One of them is a desire, collective effort, which is impressive from the woman to get for continued information. In the schools, we have 16-year-old colleagues up to 83, 84 years old, and all of them, they are thirsty for knowledge. They want to keep studying, learning, because this corresponds to a patriarchal heritage, which is a denied right. So the possibility of learning, we are present in several countries. We work virtually, and they do a great effort. They climb trees, they go to one place to another. In pandemics, when we started with this process, we have 2 or 3 people with only one cell phone. So we understand the need and the difficulties that they have, because most of them, they don't have the same time zones, right? So we had like Thursdays and Fridays in the afternoon, but sometimes Saturday in the morning, because in the morning they are really busy, taking care of the kids, of the grandchildren, of the water. So we use these spaces and times for their needs and daily care that they are responsible for, the role and the social responsibility they raise society, so they don't have this time. So in general, although I'm not an expert in education, I could say from the experience that we do have and that we understand that our little school was getting more belonging and desire, we understand that they really want space because they have a great need from the formal spaces. there's a big gap that do not consider their needs and the shapes of these women. I don't know if I answered the question, but I would say all this failure in several countries, we have several educational programs. They have done efforts to incorporate the intercultural look to learn in diverse ways the ethnical richness of the peoples, but particularly with we introduce this gender gap, we're far from getting not only to formalize education for women, but to guarantee the right and the desire to be heard, that their knowledge are recognized as part of a scientific contribution which is real and concrete for the woman. I'm sorry for the time. Thank you very much, Carmen. This is really interesting what you describe. I have a lot of questions and I'll say it later. So now, Miriam, please, I'm gonna repeat the answer and you can present yourself before answering or repeat the question. From the network and your experience, how do you think that the educational system is considering the needs of the women, defender women? Thank you for the space. My name is Miriam Iriondo. Answering the question, in the Bolivian context, I'm from live in the rural zone. I think that is important to make everyone know, although in the last years the educational issue was implemented, but the curriculum focuses in the Afro-Bolivian, and this should be wider, so everyone get to know the culture, the problematic of the Afro-Bolivian women, Afro-descendants women and their needs. That we lack lots of things, although we have this curriculum which brought some things. We have this failure, it's weak, it needs to be strengthened. And how this should be implemented in the schools, the teachers, they don't get involved, how to apply it. And for women, we know that our experience, we recognize that education is fundamental. It's totally a transformation, because if there is no access to education, with it we get knowledge and confidence and capacity to identify some violence situations. Well, I don't know if I have answered the question. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you very much. Yes, I have some comments and some questions as well. In the first case, Carmen, you were mentioning on the school, on the feminist climate justice. It's a virtual school. It's really interesting. We'd love to learn more about it on CLADE. I'd like to ask you, CLADE, because you said that the local knowledges, they are not in the formal education spaces. So, what actions in these spaces where you work at, that you belong, how to get this local knowledge to get in, that they are considered in these formal education spaces. And for you, Miriam? I'd like to ask you how the knowledge is the Afro-Bolivian language that not many people know it, but this is really important, right? From the knowledge of the Afro-Bolivian language. So what happens from the Afro-Latin network? What actions have been done so these knowledges, as Carmen was saying, can be taken into consideration and be inserted in the formal spaces of education? We know that there are a lot of issues involved, but how this knowledge can be inserted into these spaces? I'm sorry to interrupt, but Carmen has lost her connection, so she didn't hear the answer. Yes, Miriam. Yes, I can repeat. Okay, so from the network and actions that we have been doing here is to strengthen mainly the women for leadership, for confidence, for their self-esteem. And from this context that you have mentioned of the Afro-Bolivian language, we are in this retake process of the recuperation of this Afro-Bolivian language. And if the communities spoke this language, our grandparents, but nowadays this language is getting lost. So our effort is to keep this language alive as part of our identity, our ethnical process. We know that language is part of our education. The African language mixing with the Spanish language, Quechua, it's a mix. We have some African words in there. So we have nowadays an institute with Afro-Bolivian Language Technical Institute, which is heading this recuperation process of the Afro language. We are working with kids in this force in a bilingual nest, so we won't lose this language. And of course, there is a really long path, so we don't have much resources available. It's hard to get into the communities. The technicians, they travel to the communities to talk to schools, but yet there's a big lack even for the teachers. They doesn't get involved with the territories. So in this work with the Afro language, this doesn't happen because it's not in the formal curriculum. It's actually inside the Afro-Bolivian communities. So we have a Mara Quechua communities. So what can I say? It's lacking a lot of effort. So this can be more functional, let's say. And the language could be implemented in the curriculum. Thank you very much. I don't know if Carmen is back. Carmen is changing places. She'll be back in 5 minutes. I guess we can go to the next round. Then we talk to Carmen when she gets back. Yes, please, Maria. Thank you, Denise. So very well. Let's keep going the different experience. So let's see in what we have here. In Latin America, it's a common. In Guatemala, from total women that were part of the national population 2018, only 0.06% has completed the 7th grade of the basic education. In Paraguay, the educative citizenship observatory 2022, 90.5% of the women interrupted their education for familiar responsibility, comparing to 8.9% of the men in similar situations. And so we bring the inclusion in the education up of the women, Roma, rural, indigenous, Afro, in all their diversity. Let's go to this round now. I'll give the floor to Carla. She's from the Rural Women Network support, so she can answer in 8 minutes this provocative question. And so let's see if Carmen can be back so she can comment on Carla's words for this provocative question. So, which knowledge were more advanced for the inclusive education? Carla, if you could present a little bit about your journey. Okay, thank you, Maria. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carla Maruri. I'm part of the Rural Women Network from Latin America and Caribbean. This network has with Secretary Nilce Yolanda in this space, but because of healthy issues, she couldn't be here. The network has existed for almost 35 years, and it's a regional network that searches to give visibility and give empowerment and spaces for leaders, rural women in this rural context, understanding with rural women, the one that grows in the land, connected to the land. So for us, there are rural women. I think that they are in different ecosystems, and this embrace indigenous and Afro-descendant women, all it's their diversity. So here in our network since 2008, in the Secretariat of the Laws, she had fostered this work. So since 2008 to 2020, before pandemics, the process were in person, and they were seeking to incidence the local governance, what it means, how the women rural leaders could be prepared and strengthen their capacity so they can act in the decision-making spaces. This was the first reason of the formative process in person they wanted to reach. The leaders as well, we wanted them to occupy spaces in different platforms connected to it. Since 2021, as lots of organizations in here, we had to reinvent ourselves. And now in the digital space, we have to start using this new vinculation space. As we were mentioning in the very beginning, we had these connectivity issues, limited access to internet or technology, and as Miriam was saying, lots of colleagues, and so they had to go into the higher mountains or the nearest small city. So this generates a new bet in new spaces.
we started betting on a basic teaching. So we are based on human rights and activism, citizenship activism. This is what we advocate on our schools. This brings also work policies, production, water, production, means of production, access to rights, participation, political participation, communitary participation, and climate change are the focus of our teachings and working that we started working in 2023. In this context, in this political agenda, we propose a basic teaching. What does it mean? Our process, we look for a connection with other teaching process that goes deeper in some themes. Our schools, they present themselves as bases. So starts, supports, and the women later start going forward, learning other things. Those who work with earth, climate change, and against violence, they have also teachings against for that issues. This bring also adaptation theme, methodologies, and belonging in this process. What we have here in our methodology is learn by doing. We believe that you learn doing, replication. Each woman is part of a teaching program. She teaches what she learned. And this brings organization and this repetition they can do in their own languages, in their territories, spreading the concepts they know, they learned, and this bring to us this connection among those women and building these basic concepts on human rights. This makes possible that we can generate different formats, different teachings, we are in 17 countries here in the region, and we can build connections to leaders that help us spread this knowledge and bring that as a project declaring this is the decade of rural women. Strengthening those leaders is what we bring as a collective proposal, getting to 2033. And we declared the 2023, we declared the year for rights and for women in 2024 until 2024 is going to be the decade of women. This is one of the biggest conquests we had, and building this decade of awareness from Canada to Chile that can be the tool for us to build and fight for policies that bring dignity to women's life, women and children. Another important point that was a win was the teaching processes. We have already mapped formation process with 3,000 women as direct learners and 6,000 women that are benefited in an indirect way, answering to this process of replication of this knowledge. We have space for decision-making, women that project themselves in their geographies, decision-making spaces as well. We bet in this process of formation to empower women. What we do, they can take everything but our knowledge. As we say, knowledge has to be shared. A part of our goal is that we want to create connection, networks. A woman that has knowledge can go deeper and spread this knowledge in other spaces, as Carmen said. She can go on environmental issues, knowledge, create networks for formation. This process can help decrease inequalities where in spaces the state cannot reach with policies. Women, children, and adolescents can be part of that, and adult women as well. This formation is a key process for our agencies and for what we do. And it's still a purpose for work. That's what I can say now answering this question. Thank you very much for your answer. We're going to continue this dialogue. Our idea here is to provoke, to build bridges. As you said, I agree with what you said, human rights, formation process, participation in those decision-making process, decreasing inequalities. Can we talk now to Carmen? Are you here, Carmen? Can you hear us? Carmen? Carmen? Can we reach her? Now let's call her again. Let's call her a third time. The fairies of technology are not helping us today. After the next round, let's try again to get in touch with Carmen. Before that, let's share another idea as the work we did through this collaboration, this topic. Fighting against violence in the families, in school, and the communities, activating through education, popular feminist education, Center for Research and Popular Promotion. Sing Deep from Peru, fight against bullying. Now we are going to having this desire to share, talk about this topic. Let's talk now to Denise Guerra to go to our third round of conversations. Sorry, I had a coughing crisis. Can you read the question again, please? Okay, I can read the question again. We help each other. Miriam, please, Miriam, let's share this provocation with you. From the Women Network, we know about your journey, about your work. Can you give us more details about what you do, and so we can develop this question? And Esther Camar Ramirez, who just arrived, we would like to make a comment about this question. What are we doing? What should we do? So education can include all of us. Multiple identities, intergenerational identities, LGBTQIA+, the people with disabilities. What are we doing for that? What can we do? Please, Miriam. I believe as women, we moving forward with all those barriers, we have to look at that. And for sure, we have to build an education that embraces diversity. This is a big part of our work. There's a hard work, and this is costing us a big effort to build those spaces to reach other women as well. That's important to know now and understand that we need alliances, collaboration between strength us to reach that are super important. We are promoting those discussions. So children, young and adult women share our knowledge. So we have the space for respect and recognition of this knowledge. Promoting education that recognize those differences, those diversities, Afro-descendants, indigenous women, migrant women, women with disability. We still see so many such situations that challenge us. If we have those developments, we still need to eradicate racism, sexism, exclusion, because we still having those occurrences in schools, universities, in different spaces, we can identify those things. So we can move forward, can develop if we work together in a collective way among us and teachers, among us and teachers, because that's important that the teachers and the authorities on those communities, they are in sync, they are involved on those spaces, bring forward those discussions so we can build together a fair education with equity, with fairness, that can repair those gender inequalities. There are so many things that we could do, that we could include there. This could be the first step to start those discussions, to move on in this way. That's what I would like to share with you. I don't know if there is anything else that I can answer, please. Thank you, Miriam. Now I would like to continue with this dynamic that we thought for this afternoon, where we comment with each other about complementary perspectives that are different at the same time. So now let's talk about cybernetic problems. That these cybernetic problems took our colleague that was present here. She was able to connect, but we are not going to be able to see her. Please stay. Welcome. She tried. She didn't give up to connect with us. She's from the Intercontinental Indigenous Women Network. Please share with us. Miriam, answer. Please, Esther, the floor is yours. I connected with the last link, and now I'm connected through my cell phone. I was not able to do it through the phone. It's nice to see you now. I'd like to congratulate everybody. I had some connection issues because I want to connect through the telephone, and the link I was not able to use the link to connect. And then I learned that I can use the computer, but there I don't have a camera. So I'm here. I would like to thanks for the REPEM for the invitation and share with you that my organization, we work at Costa Rica. I'm a Quechua woman from Peru, and I live 43 years already in Costa Rica. I'm a theologist, sociologist, and before everything, I am an activist engaged for human rights and indigenous rights, women rights above all. That's what I do. We have a lot to say, we have a lot to share about this question. And about the question we answered, I'm going to share the experience from my institution. We just became 30 years old. We have the constitution of our organization for indigenous women. We are present in 23 countries with more than that. Let me count information. Let me see if I have the right information. More than 98 indigenous ethnicities groups. We have more indigenous groups, but with us, and on the organizational process with indigenous women, that we were able to reach these women, those groups as ethnia, as ethnicity. We do not work direct with a process to think on education. We work through articulation. Our focus and our process of articulation was education. Was education starting at the root of rethink and not only copy other models. Other organizational processes that were happening when we were born. We were repeating modern perspectives that came from other feminist movements. Focus there for women. We had to change it. We asked ourselves this thing: where are we different? Where is where the fight for rights? It's different. I mean, feminism as a whole and feminism for us, indigenous women. For us, this process is a constant formation process. This started ethnia through different mechanisms that now we have in place with us. I'd like to give some examples. When we talk about working on women empowerment, we started to ask from the indigenous cosmo view, where is the space, the role indigenous women develop in their territories? Starting there with this cosmo view, how do we women see ourselves? Why do we, when we start there, we initiate this organization process, we start to receive criticism and attacks from men. They said that we are adopting feminism norms, so we would divide our people. If we answer that, but we ask ourselves, how can we do that? And this make possible for us to look at our history and revindicate the women role on those ethnicities, on those people. We did not only research, but through many research process, there were meetings, gatherings, we were able to talk about many themes that were important to us, so we could compare and change our reality, finding solutions for our reality. At Academia, it was clear for us our goal, which was the recognition of our rights as indigenous people, this collective view, individual and collective view, and having the rights as people, not forgetting women's right. We make possible the participation in different levels where we were able to discuss those instruments on United Nations at OAA. We took 20 years to be able to get the declaration for indigenous people. It took us 17 years to have the American Declaration, so we could have these international instruments. 14 years took for us to have more elements, more information. So we have the general recommendation 39 for human rights and indigenous rights, which where were we able to get with this process? For example, the incidence, the empowerment that we want, the influence we wanted in the international level. Can you hear us? Thus, we have to control the time. You have to hear the other colleagues. Please, can you conclude in 2 minutes so we can move forward with this discussion and talk more about education and protection for these women and your experience. And then after, I would like for Carmen to comment what you said. 2 minutes to conclude. I would like to prioritize two themes. One of them is the approach to have indigenous territories without violence. We build a process of dialogues through the generations, our generations, so we can analyze the types of violence that women, indigenous women, have to face on their territories. Starting there, we can build the concepts and build our strategies to approach those violences, not only to approach the first care, and how can we eradicate this violence. It's not only to provide first care, it's about to take on these concrete situations, how to solve this violence is a central aspect of our work. We cannot have women that are having psychological difficulties, and when they don't have balance in their lives, not only in the individual level, in the family level, and community level, bringing those themes for the community to discuss that violence breaks the balance of our cosmos view and our lives. If we want to have a fulfilled lives, we have to work on naming those violences, taking care of these women, provide first care, solve those violences, and provide cure and dialogues with the men as well. With that, intergenerational dialogue. We are focused in that, bring dialogues where the youth can take part, challenging us to talk about things that we didn't dare to talk about, like diversity, for example. And to build this dialogue process, we can create dialogue circles where we can take care in these ideas. We put together meetings for more than 100 women to discuss of the economic violence that many of us are not able to talk when we talk about the other violences. That's why we talk about violences in plural. Do you know time tyranny? They put us in these limitations. Please stay with us. Let's keep this dialogue. And have some question in the chat. Carla, do you have any comments? What can you bring to this discussion? Thank you, Maria. Esther, pleasure meeting you. So nice that the technology fairies make possible for you to be with us. At our network, we share this resilience and this collective fight, we as a network, it took 17 years to approve our network loose so that our inter-American design could be approved. And what resonates with me and has to do with this process we do, it's about name and recognize and not accept those violences. This is very important on those formation process. Have to put that at the table, have to talk about it and have to name it so we can work on those issues. And this is something that we bet that can be done among adult women, young women. This is very recent, but we are open as well, the integration of this conversation for the men. So we can have them as this part of the discussion, taking this beyond their masculinities. We can talk about this necessity of collective care, secure. We have now our educational process. The first module, we talk about leadership, identity, and recognition. We start there because we have to recognize what we are, and many leaderships on this formation process, they are ashamed of to be indigenous, Afro-descendant, to be a rural woman. We have to recognize those stereotypes, recognizing this type of violences, recognizing our identities, including a process for self-esteem in a general approach. In our Latin American meetings at CLADE, we were able to follow, to have a meeting in Cordoba with 50 rural women from 16 countries, many spaces for dialogue, for discussions, working groups on those talks, on those spaces for collective care that enable us to connect in a collective way in the network I'm building. And there's something that is something very important that can help us to recognize and cure who we are. In this sense, there is something very important on this space for prevention of violence is to fight this narrative. We have to recognize the human humanity in all of us, because we teach that. We teach to be superhuman, super leaders, and that took from us the possibility to make mistakes, to be tired, to have other problems. It's also important to remember and to take care of that in a collective way, taking care of the leaderships, to distribute the load of work, to build leaderships that bet in the collective because they feel embraced and supported. This complements, and I believe, I'm sure that Luz would love to meet you, to be side by side with you, talking about the time we need. We need now to be aware of this need to meet each other, to enforce our connections, to understand what we do on those spaces. Thank you very much, Carla. Thank you to be connected here with us through technology. We can reconnect, talk about our humanities, to talk about here, making this movement on those 4 experiences that we are sharing here. Now let's go to the flash. I'm going to share now how do we continue. 750 million of people, youngs and youth, do not know how to write. 2 in 3 women, 2 in 3 on those are women. Strategies for our literacy.
Two from 3 women regarding this illiteracy. Two of each three people are women. So we could deliver some knowledge in this session, right? Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. It's an honor to hear all these wonderful women, experienced people, their practices as well from the education. So actually, this is really interesting. Maria always uses her metaphors so we can understand, and there is a lot to do with our topics here. With the food, it has a lot to do with food, and food is part of the struggle that we have for food sovereignty, headed for a lot of women, our women. So, okay, so I'm gonna read what some colleagues wrote in the chat. I see that Carmen is here. Hello, Carmen. I would like to ask Carmen, Carla is there. Are you there, Esther? Okay, yes. And Miriam as well. To take notes of these comments, not for everyone to answer everything, but if someone wants to add something, please feel free. So the idea is that we can have dialogue spaces, like a session like this. So this round of comments on the questions on the chat has to be fast so we can open the dialogue spaces in the room. So Miriam is saying that we need an education beyond the classroom. In Mexico, we're talking about formal education, all informal, so everyone know their rights. Miriam Ovalle says that you cannot speak of rural women if they don't have access to the land. They only live in there. That's a question. What's the concept of popular education that you are using? This could be really long, colleagues. Uh, please be aware of what you're saying. You need to be fast, please. And then we have questions related to violence. Why the education can be a protective factor in the face of the multiple violences that are done against women, the girls, youth, and yet on how education can be part of cure processes. Okay, so I'd like to propose here, we have this doubt on the rural women concept, and we also have a question on popular education. So I'd like to ask to who's going to answer, please be fast. And in the end, we have the role of education and cure of in the processes of cure of different violences that women suffer, youth, women, adults, elderly women, all the women. Carmen, you have raised your hand. You wanted to answer? Carla, please be fast. I'm sorry that I lost my connection. Technology has these issues, right? So I lost something what you were saying. So I'll try to answer the question, and I would like to share what inspired us to think on education on liberty space. As Miriam, I came from a Bolivian territory, and we have a really strong history on the indigenous school. There was considered a crime. We have some teachers that taught indigenous kids that suffer repression. So it's a really uh, big struggle history to access to our identity and everything that has to do with this different look and the content and the role of the formal education in this patriarchal context, but apart from that, we feel that the educational spaces in this moment, in the regional context and also global, it, it happens on the schools. They can be a place where people can feel free. So equality in intercultural issues, they can be articulated, and then we can recognize all the knowledges that are transmitted continuously in a way that is different from formal education. This is saying of a school and a education context that goes beyond the usual one. And this school is transforming the world. I think that's more and more present, as Miriam and other colleagues were saying. So it's a really strong effort. And this psychological crisis that we live nowadays, mainly women that bring these knowledges in the continent, they're giving us important lessons. And in this transmission of their knowledges that is done through rural mechanisms, so with a memory that is always present, which is transmitted by women, this opens up incredible path of hope. I think that's the way. I think it answers at least part of the question, but that's what I can share from my experience. Yes, Carmen, thank you very much. Carla, please. Thank you. I'm gonna focus in the doubts on the rural women, okay? Of course. What we have here in our network, a concept that was complex to define, mainly because when this concept was formulated in 1996, it's a long time ago, so of course the world has changed. But for us, the rural women, we we have any connection with the territories, with the morality in Bolivia, Chile, and Ecuador. They're not the same. The conditions are totally different. Some countries they have different rural process, but there's still a rurality. So let's talk about it, okay? But it doesn't mean that the woman that had a connected with the land, they are the owner of the land. This is one of the axes of the network to talk about the ownership more than anything. So for us, this is going to be keeping a concept that is evolving. And what happens as well is that actually there is a migration of the rurality to the urban area that allows that some misery neighborhoods of the city they can add, and some women they migrate searching for better conditions of life. In our presentation, we're saying that the kids, the rural kids, rural girls can be the tomorrow's rural women. That's what we want to do. Who is at the land in this space that they could be still a hope, not having the idea of living it because there's no connection, there's no education, no good life. We have to show them different paths. So in our concept was created in 1996 for 200 rural leader women that were searching to simplify what it meant to be a rural woman at the moment. So we have some rural women and then we have it amplified. Of course, this happens with other spaces where a lot of theoretical people. Carla, please pay attention to the time. Yeah, just to conclude, we have this other conversation on concept that has to do with our topic that was described that each country is different. That's it. And each country, rurality is different. But the women are at the women that are at the rural area, it's our look. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Carla. Have you raised your hand? Yes. Okay, so in really brief to answer the questions that were done, the first thing that I would say, well, we have to consider these decolonization processes in our work. We need to disconsider the one when you see the difference between informal and formal education. What we have to do is to ask that all process should be formative and that we can do it in different ways, but that is our formation process. This is our educational process. That through several methodologies, we then can have this learning process, building knowledges, sharing knowledge, dreams, and work strategies as well. So I think this is hard. I'm a little bit rebel, so for me, it's hard to repeat the standards that were imposed, and that in a way they make education, the formative process, is not valid when you have differences between formal and informal and all of this, or other names that they can give it. We have to request that the normative and educative work that we do, they have to dignify life and to build knowledge that can be shared, because lots of times they come to ancestrality, the experience that we as women have built. Okay, this is a first aspect that I would like to say. The second topic for me, which for me is really important, that it is always to consider in this process there are about violence, and here I'm talking about violence in indigenous people. There is this violence, and I would like to say that all the violences that exist, they do happen in indigenous territories. Rapes, gender problems, patriarchal standards, aggressions against the Mother Earth. There are different levels of violence within the territories. As I said, one of the topics that we do not talk about is the economic violence. The economic trauma that we cannot make any cure process, so we can get rid of these poverty messages as well. We are in this search, willing to share everything that we're doing in this work, understanding including what we have in our way. It's a formative process. Okay, thank you, Esther. Miriam, please. Thank you. Well, regarding what it was being said on popular education, well, all educative process they are important, but as we are in a rural space, of course, this take us to have this education, which is a popular education with the land, with the territory, with our context, where we are part of, and we are living in harmony with nature. Of course, that this is important. If in one side we have this educations with really structured parameters, uh, curriculum with this patriarchal look, sometimes this lack of connection of the rural area. I believe that these spaces that we women built, educative spaces, which are those community schools, learning centers, and formation networks between us, colleagues, these spaces, they are where we learn practice from territory and from our body. I think that that's the care pedagogy and resistance that we need for educational systems. And this should be recognized and integrated. I think that to educate is as well to defend the land, women knowledge, which are critical for the persistence of life in the territories where we live at. Thank you very much. Thank you, Miriam. So thank you very much. It's 7:26. So I think that we'll have to get to the conclusion unless someone wants to add something. We have some minutes yet. We had lots of comments on the chat. But I would like to check if someone wants to go further in this all diverse experience in the education terrain. But of course, there are a lot of common topics on how to approach the educative aspect, even the topics brought here. So in a way, this makes sense because, of course, we face problems. I think that we're having a good scenario with different concepts to show the importance of the education according to what each network does and how they approach it. I think that was really important this session today. Someone else is writing another comment. Miriam, I think that the concept of education will be different, but the objective is the same: to share knowledge, critical thinking, and better quality and dignity of people's life. Education should transform social reality. So Miriam was really aware. She had a comment for everything. So really, this helps in the change between our invited people. So I think we're finishing it. I don't see anyone with their raised hand. Would like to do a comment? Yes, really brief. Yes. While I was listening, I got emotional as women were a survivor of diverse violences. So this relationship that we have between the November 25th and the rural woman and diverse women,
We
I
have
think
this
that
show
this
us
shows us
that
that
these
the
violences
violence and the
they are
experiences of this violence
important in
are
women's life.
something really important in the women's lives.
Yes, this means it didn't happen to one of us, but indirectly we're all affected. So we need this strength of 25 of November. We're going to still reflect about it. Thank you very much, Tita. Thank you to all of you that were here with us today. Those who are going to watch this recording, thank you for being part of that. One of the things that we have raised today here, we had amazing discussions. this recording can go back to the network, you can share it, you can use it. We can share that in your organization's networks to move forward, strengthening this dialogue, deepening this dialogue about education. That's about it. It's about education in the biggest way, in the broad way. Education as protection. Education as protection in protection for the human rights of the rural women, indigenous women, and us mixed race women. We need as well to be aware of the needs of mixed race women. Maybe we can embrace all of us in this process, impacting public policies, intercultural policies, bringing access to opportunities, education, in schools. We're able to see the numbers here. Schools, universities, institutions, and so on. Offerings that are in sync with the needs of our women here in Latin America and Caribbean. Going over just 1 minute of our time. A big hug to all of you. I learned already. We are ready here. Let's go to the video and we conclude our evening, our discussion. Thank you to everyone. Let's keep going. Let's keep doing this work. It's a very interesting dialogue and very strategical. We embrace it to others. And now let's go watch the video. Thank you from REPEM and CLADE.
En la esquina yo quiero bailar, caminar sin que me jodan, sin que chiflen en la esquina. Poder feminista, 8 de marzo. Tanta chochata con que vos sos el dueño, tu cerebro y tu pene son igual de pequeños. A mí no me asustan los abusadores, los que creen que a puño se ganan honores. Decime patana, decime rockera, decime vandálica y hasta tortillera. Tus halagos patán no cruzarán mi frontera, que va. Yo soy la guerrillera, la mismísima presidenta. Quiero bailar, caminar sin que me jodan, sin que me chiflen en la esquina. Yo quiero Vestirme bonita para ir a pasear.
Sin que me moleste ningún anormal.
Vestirme bonita para ir a luchar.
Sin que me moleste ningún charlatán.
Vestirme bonita para ir a trabajar.
Sin que me moleste ningún anormal.
Vestirme bonita para ir a luchar.
Sin que me moleste ningún charlatán.
Quiero bailar, caminar sin que me jodan, sin que chiflen en la esquina. Yo quiero bailar, caminar sin que me jodan, sin que chiflen en la esquina. Vestirme bonita para ir a pasear.
Sin que me moleste ningún charlatán.
Vestirme bonita para ir a trabajar.
Moleste ningún anormal.
Vestirme bonita para ir a luchar.
Me moleste ningún acusador.
Quiero bailar, caminar sin que me jodan, sin que me chiflen en la
Se eu não puder, eu não posso. O firma eu não sei, eu vou confirmar com o firmo e retorno para você.
Gracias,
Se o firma
gracias.
não podendo, eu
Hasta
vou
la
buscar um
próxima.
tradutor para você.
Chao, gracias.
Amanhã,
Cuídense. Un
já te
abrazo.
passo o contato, certo?
Gracias por todo.
Maravilha.
Gracias.
Eu que agradeço, geral. Um
Solo
abração.
nos quedamos un
Tchau.
ratito. Gracias, Tanaka. Ya puedes parar la grabación igual, Tamara. Gracias. Ya se puede parar la grabación.